You're Turkish, okay. But it's up to you. So that's my name, and that's the title of the presentation, as you can all see. That's the easiest bit. So how do we do this? Okay.
I think we can.
All right. Next slide, please.
You can use the keyboard.
All settling? Okay, good. All right. So, all right, let's have a quick introduction. I think we have about 30 minutes right now, okay, on my account. And who is actually part of the lecture and the academic stuff? You're, I think, academic stuff. Who else?
How did you know?
Like research assistant, etc. Who else? Academic stuff? No. All right. Who else is a student? PhD, MSc, usually postgrad, undergrad, undergraduate students, fourth year, third year students.
No.
We
got more
postgraduate.
graduate students.
Anybody else? Serdar. Okay. Just here to do business.
Half year.
Okay. That's good. All right. All right. Myself too. Okay. Good. I'll let you know who I am very, very quickly. This is a slide that's copied and pasted from our referee meeting. So that's me, Barış Bulut. I'm originally from Izmir. I actually graduated from Middle East University in 1997. So that makes me have been graduated about 22 years ago, roughly. I have a position at Okan University. That's a special topic. That's what people call TTF. TFF, I think, TFT, theoretical full-time. I think Hojam knows about that. That doesn't exist in usual universities, but at private universities, you seem to be a full-time member of staff, whereas you're actually, they're almost one day a week or something like that. But anyway, that makes me an academic as well. There are some academic projects like TADEB projects. TADEB is a keyword that I would like you to Google later on. So I'm going to underline these things, so you can take some things away from this seminar, okay? TADEB is one of them. So this is a TADEB project, XTSL aboneleri hizmet kullanımı emniyet arayüz aracılığı geliştirilmesi. That's about, I think, 800 or 900,000 euro project that was initiated by me, hosted by a previous company that I used to work for, and that's been completed this June. And another TADEB project, again, 1511, 1511. Okay, these are code words if you want to do something later on the innovation side of things. Okay, and that's COSGAP project. You can forget about that. I'm an active evaluator in like Horizon, Eurostars, TÜBİTAK, Marmara Teknokent, Kaldırma Ajansı, that sort of projects. So I actually evaluate maybe tens of projects regularly. My company is quite a small company right now. I'm trying to grow it. We have several ongoing projects. One project with Ismail, and I think one or two projects with Serdar over here. And these are interesting projects. All of them are international, with more than, obviously, one partner, okay, which is different from what academics usually do. And all about innovation. And I'll tell you what innovation is and how it is different from research. Because research and innovation and entrepreneurship and other things are actually all combined into one sentence, which is usually wrong. Anyway, these are our project portfolio. We can come back to that in the round table. Is this a round table, Ismail? That would be
We have a bigger table.
All right. Now these underlying things, if I were you, I would basically write them down and Google them later on. If you are an academic, like very few of us are, you can do, if you want to do an international innovation project, not research, you can do Horizon or what they now call RDEP 1071, okay? That's a new program that's been there for less than a year, I think. Or you can actually be an academic consultant in some of these Eureka projects, like Ismail and Serdar and myself are actually have embarked upon, and similar TADEB projects, okay? But if you're a student, like many of you are, okay, you can actually start working and basically learn what work means, which we didn't know at the beginning also. We don't actually get born, with all this information in our brains, okay? We get to learn them. And you can do 15-20 to 15-12, which is actually about entrepreneurship, girişimcilik, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, yeah. I would definitely recommend it, unless you have 2 of the 3 capitals that you need to have to set up a company: intellectual capital, network capital, or financial capital, okay? Because that just gives you money and nothing else. So that just fills in the money gap, which is not that great money actually when it comes to that. 200,000 euros may sound good, but unless you have the experience in many things and the network that will come with the experience, you won't need much. I can say that, and this might not talk a lot, so I'm not going to mention the third one. These things, Frascati, Oslo, I think you should note them down. At some point in time, you may need them because all these things are actually all messed up, like Ar-Ge, inovasyon, girişimcilik, damacana su ve inşaat ticaret anonim şirketi gibi şirketler görüyorsunuz. So, these are all messed up, but Ar-Ge is actually something that is completely different from innovation. Innovation is, as the key is the word suggests, doing something new. But it could be a new product, a process, a new way to market something, some of which we are trying to do in our Eureka projects that will come in 2 minutes. Okay, so this is just the groundwork. Okay, and Ar-Ge, which is research, can be a tool in the process of innovation. Okay, so it is not like you need always Ar-Ge to do innovation. Innovation is innovation. Ar-Ge is Ar-Ge. Girişimcilik is completely something else. I mean, girişimcilik is probably a bakkal is a girişimci, okay? If he sees that it doesn't have, there is no property large enough for you market or BİM, and they open a little kiosk and they make more money than you and I. Okay, that is girişimcilik. But anyway, let's move on. So have you heard of this letter T and R and L that is called TRL? Who so far have heard of this? Yeah, okay, good. 1, 2, 3 people. Not bad, but I would like you all to go back and actually Google this, and you will get something that resembles this picture or something that actually looks like a stacked up version of that. Okay, TRL basically, it means at what level of readiness your technology. Okay, because every entrepreneur pretends to have some kind of an idea that they don't want to share with anybody else, and that's particularly prevalent when it comes to younger people. Like they always have an idea, but they don't want to share, which may not mean much. Okay, but if you're talking about just an idea, it means you're somewhere around TRL 1, or sometimes it's even called 0. Okay, just an idea. Here, next to TRL 9, there is the market. Okay, there is you and me. Okay, if you're buying something, if you can pay money to buy something, that means it's probably TRL 9. Okay, like this product, for example. This is TRL 9. Okay, it can be sold in countries with all these certification about this laser, etc. Okay, it can be sold. It's TRL 9 product. If you have something around a proof of concept, which means, okay, we tried it and the cables are there and our Arduino is there and the Raspberry Pi is there. Okay, it does work, but don't touch the table because it may just break off. Okay, you're probably somewhere around here. Okay, because you're getting just enough information to acknowledge that it is feasible. You know, it does work. It does see the light, and then it can actually sense the humidity, and it can send some signals. But it's not a product. Nobody will buy them. And if you move on and on and on, these all have little nuances, okay? And you can search for, just Google it. And around TRL 6, you probably have something like a prototype, okay, a working prototype. But then it's not a commercializable product. It cannot be sold directly, okay? Just search for this because these are important. Again, what we are doing here and what our project is doing is this higher TRL bit, okay? We don't do research, even though to be fair, other institutions use the term research. We do innovation actually. We use higher TRL concepts. And also search for RDEP, Hocam knows about that, okay? And KDEP, you should all know about that if you want to do something on the innovation side with the companies or with your company that you will establish later on, okay? And you've already Googled this. And Horizon, which is the European Union Framework Program, has RIA's, Research and Innovation Actions. Research, okay, it's like research, and research basically means you are going to the left side of this spectrum, okay? If you're doing research, you could also be one, as we were talking about many times, you will find in the course, the TRLs are described as between 2 and 4, between 3 and 5, 2 and 5, and etc., okay? So low TRL means you're doing research, but higher TRL means you're doing innovation. So if you go for Horizon 2020 Innovation Action, you will need to do activities within this region, for example, okay? Okay, and eventually it will not again be it will be a potentially saleable product, but it will not be a readily, a sold product. You still need all these commercialization steps and afterwards. So RDEP, TADEP, Horizon, RIA, EA, TRL, Google material, okay? So where are we? Where's Eureka, okay? Okay, now that's going to start making sense, I think. Eureka is basically a formation of, as the Eureka webpage says, okay, intergovernmental network established in 1985, blah, blah, blah, but the number 3 is important, promotes and supports market-oriented international R&D project. Where is the market here? On the left-hand side or on the right-hand side? Right, okay. So market-oriented, not TRL 2, 3 oriented. So you need to be somewhere here. Ismail's product already needs to be somewhere around here, so he will get traction and more funding and actually make it more and more mature and try to get certification, HIPAAs, and all these CE markings, etc. Especially in health, there's a lot of stuff that you need to do that you don't otherwise need to do if you're building a data center product or something, for example. Okay, so market-oriented, we're talking about innovation, not research, okay? By the way, this means research and development innovation project, but that's a common thing. And intergovernmental. So, who is in it? Turkey has signed up for this. I think all the European Union countries are in it, and not in European Union, but Canada, Switzerland, Norway, Russia, Ukraine, South Africa, South Korea. South Korea is a very developed country. I mean, much more developed than you would probably think. Canada, I think very good. Businesses have very good sense of doing business. You see good people there. I've not met anyone from Russia. I'd like to, but this is so Eureka is basically a project, a setup for a project, international project. Eureka is a setup for an innovation and market-oriented international project that can happen among these countries. So you need to have at least one partner, from at least 2 different countries. So it could be an eligible French partner and an eligible Hungarian partner, and you can set up Eureka network. So that's what we did, but we did it at a larger scale. Another slide, I think I'll come to that. A typical Eureka cluster is, again, these are cluster projects, okay? So you need to have, how they always say, okay, you need to learn how to work in a team and blah, blah, blah. This is working in a team from a company's point of view. So you need to have research institutes, or what we call RTOs, research and technology organizations, RTOs, okay? We need to have SMEs like KODİ, okay, Orta Bu İşletme, SME, small and medium-sized enterprise. You need to have large companies like Turkcell and Netaş, for example, here, and form a group. Usually they say there is 14 participants. In our project, 25, 27 participants, I think we'll see. Usually 3-4 countries, in our case, I think 7 countries. On average, 30 months, 2.5 hours is 3 years. Anyway, it's usually a maximum duration of 36 months, which is 3 years anyway. And ours is around this range also. Just note these things down so you can Google them later on, okay? There are different clusters with different themes. So, if you're doing something about telecommunications and in fact about connectivity, like health 5G, so actually health 5G project is 51% on the 5G side, not the health side. I'm not saying 70-30, but 5G a little bit more is heavier than any other aspects. So we actually put it through the Celtic Next cluster, okay? We could have done it with IT as well. And we could have then said, okay, this is software intensive thing, okay? It's how you emphasize. But anyway, don't want to go into detail. Sorry, do you want to say something? It's fine, no? Okay, after. We've got experience with, I think 7 of them. We have about experience with this one, this. Maybe apart from 2, I have personal experience with all of them. So coming back to our project, which was the topic of today's talk. Okay, good. Can we Google Translate this, please? I cannot read that. Okay, this is our consortium. Okay, consortium is where you start off. Okay, you have an idea, but consortium is also crucial in these things. So we have Turkey, Spain, Germany, Sweden, Ireland, and South Korea and Israel. Okay, it wasn't like this in day one. It was just an idea, just a presentation done by someone, in fact, from Finland. And they don't even exist right now in today's consortium, simply because it's subject to national funding. So these projects are Eureka projects. Where's Eureka? Yeah, Eureka projects are always subject to national funding. You form a team, a consortium, but then you apply for things, and eventually, if it works out for TÜBİTAK or CDTI or whatever, Vinnova for Sweden, for example, then it works out. Otherwise, they drop out, which some of these countries did. Ukraine dropped out, Hungary dropped out, France dropped out, and I think lastly, Finland dropped out. Anyway, this project started in January 2019. So what is the lead time for actually this? How do you subtract January 20 from January 2019? February 2017, it's actually 23 months, right? Almost 2 years. So there is such a long lead time in these things. The incubation period, or whatever you want to call it, like investment, you literally spend, you spend money, and time is also money, so you're basically spending time with the expectation that this thing will work out. And for example, for Finland, it didn't work out. They spent all this time and money as well. And now we'll have about these, I think 28, because there are 2 more now. So you can see actually Ericsson, Netash, very important, Innocence here, Informa, my company. So we have a large company, large, and the other ones are actually SMEs. And I think large, this is university in Barcelona. This is, I think, an SME, so they have a balance there as well. SME, Fraunhofer, you should Google this also. Fraunhofer is a sort of a group of combination of 69 institutes, I think, with thousands of researchers, and they get funding from the government, as also from the private projects. So they do work. They're like a better working version of TÜBİTAK here. High Street Technology is a very good SME, and this is obviously a university, and that's an SME, and MDH is university over there, which is good. So you can note down some of these names.
Who's coordinator?
Coordinator is now this.
Experts.
Experts, yes.
Is the overall coordinator.
Overall coordinator, but they're the usually you have like technical coordinator and
Project coordinator.
like management coordinator, right? Is that the right word? They're the management coordinator
Of the whole project.
Yeah, and because we actually lost VTT, which was the actual coordinator, and they didn't get funding, we currently need to change our like technical coordinator. That's an internal thing, but at the moment, yes, they're the coordinator. And in every country, there is also a national coordinator, because TÜBİTAK calls Informa muhatap şirket. So several things are actually done over one company. Otherwise, there needs to be a lot of paperwork and lack of synchronization and everything. So you apply through one company, get the decision posted to that one company, obviously we do the relaying. Any questions? You can stop me. So that's our project website, still version 0.9. So what do we do in this project? I think that's what I was called for. So we try to translate, if there are any 5G guys here, you can take over, because I'm not a 5G person. I'm an electrical electronics graduate. I was a good student at the university, but still I cannot call myself a 5G person.
Raise your hand.
Okay.
There is one.
I'm probably 4.8G. You're probably 5G. So you should probably comment on this if I'm making any mistakes at least. So there are several things that come with 5G. So for in layman's terms, it brings speed. 2G, 275G was like what? 128 kilobits with that old calcium, for example. Then it became 3G. You saw a megabit per second. And then 4G, we now see several tens of megabits per second download and upload. And with obviously 5G, the speed will increase, but this is what an average Joe thinks about 5G. And that is called enhanced mobile broadband. And that's something you need. For example, anybody from the medical industry here, yourselves, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you take like PET scan, what's called positron or photon emission scan.
PET.
Good. I'm not medical. I mean, I'm a doctor, but I always say don't die because I'm not that doctor, the boring one. So, I mean, the size of the document, the file that is produced after PET scan is in the order of gigabytes, for example. So, if you're talking about transmitting that, transporting it from the hospital to a service provider that looks at that data and determines if there is cancer or something wrong with it, this is becoming a new business method in health, by the way. Companies are coming up, they're just taking the picture file and telling you what is wrong with it. They don't need to be there because there's no purpose. The AI is with them. But you need to transport this gigabytes of file. It happens to transfer within seconds with 5G. With ADSL, you make the calculation or with other terms. And this is, and obviously you need speed for other reasons as well, okay? Not just PET scan. This is ultra reliable low latency communication. Among other things, obviously, the reliability and how you can actually assign reliability to certain different types of services, I think. The 5G person can actually correct me here. And low latency is important. I mean, including the airtime, I think the plan is less than 10 milliseconds end-to-end. So that paves way for really real-time things. For example, we're talking about voice. You can actually delay the voice a little bit. You can have a satellite communication. Okay, I mean, if there is no packet loss, just a packet delay, you can actually understand what the other guy is saying, or what the other person is saying. But when you're playing a game, or when you're trying to make the physiotherapy patient play a game, which is actually a treatment in the form of gamification, then you need to have a low latency system. Otherwise, the guy kills someone here, but the system still actually survives the other opponent's whatever character or whatever like that. So you need basically a low latency system there, okay? There are other scenarios as well. Just Google, for example, 5G healthcare scenarios, okay? These are not officially listed. In some other sectors, I think, other verticals, these are listed, okay? But 5G healthcare scenarios are not officially listed, but you can see a lot of research on that. 5G, this is enhanced machine type communication. So, there are all of us here, but within 1 kilometer square kilometer range, you have maybe a few thousands of such connections, okay, at one time. But with 5G, you expect to see in the order of million IoT devices, by which I mean like your Fitbits, your Mi devices, Xiaomi Mi wristbands, for example, your phones as usual. But the person-to-person communication SIM cards plus the IoT devices, adding up to more than 1 million devices per square kilometer is a very dense thing. I think that is supported with. So we're trying to convert all these benefits to benefits in health. So these are things that we're trying to come up with the help of some health SMEs, like for example Innocence here, and we've actually come up with, by we I mean the consortium has come up with hospital, home and emergency use cases. Hospital is what happens at the hospital, okay? There's a hospital setup, which is not the same thing as an emergency setup, because emergency, you don't usually have an emergency situation at the hospital. You actually fall down at your home, or when you're climbing a hill or something like that. That's an emergency case. Home is, when you think about like, what is that? Silver generation, it's called, like the elderly generation, okay? Now, we're talking about reverse parenting now with the, increasing median age, okay? We used to be parented when we were small, but as the population gets older, now we're going to be parenting our parents, okay? At home, ideally, not like other places. Bakım evleri yerine evde bakılması daha iyi psikolojik olarak, doğal ortam sağlayarak. So, but elderly scenario is just one scenario. Otherwise, there may be other scenarios. I'm not going to go into this because I saw they are actually in your presentation. A holistic approach, this is like a marketing term, but research, and you saw like there are some research guys here. There actually, I think, Innocence has, I think, access to GETAM, for example, as far as I know, and university, Gebze or Kocaeli, Istanbul University, and that's a university, and that's a huge RTO, Research and Technology Organization, etc. So we have the research components, the innovation components. Which one had a higher TRF? Innovation? Yeah? Okay. And then validation. You need to validate. Validation is an important term. You have something, a very, very good idea, unless you validate it in a real environment, okay, it needs less, obviously. Then you have something in your desk that works fine, unless, until your mother touches it.
The Turkish group, the Turkish consortium,
Turkish,
were they cooperating before, or just came for during this project together?
Let me think. I think these might have had other projects, I think.
Not only, yeah.
Informa has other projects, but after health, but
Not
not because of this, actually. With Turkcell and Netaş and Ericsson and Netaş and Vestel, yeah, other project. Ismail and I wrote up another project that hasn't gone through yet. So, you have a team, and then you don't destroy that team after that game. You try to actually do something better, maybe. But I also don't like when there is a consortium like this, and then they appear in every single project as they are. You see like these, like, I don't know how to call them. Fantastic.
Usual suspects.
Usual suspects. You don't want to see them. It really bothers me. But if there is value, then good. We try to create as valuable consortium as possible, okay, with what we had at the time. So I think we have a good distribution of, first of all, SME and large, okay. Obviously, the universities are invisible in this picture because they don't get funded, okay, as I was telling you here, okay. You cannot, if you're actually an academic or a university, you cannot participate. Hocam can be a consultant, okay, in a project, but they cannot be a participant. You need to be a for-profit company, AŞ or limited, okay, in Turkey. But in Germany, there's no problem. TÜV, yeah, I forgot to count that. TÜV Technical University gets funded, just like this company. In Turkey, so we have universities, but they're kind of subcontractors, okay, on paper. So they get paid, unfortunately. But now that being changed with this RDF 1071. So search for it, but that is a different code. That's not Eureka. So anyway, let's come back here. So research, yeah, okay, research, basic research. Innovation, doing something newer, okay, in the hope that you will actually solve a problem for the patient or for the people, and then validate it. So we need hospitals. Okay, I think last week's discussion is now was about which hospitals can we use in the project and then do validation. Okay, if you don't validate, you don't move to the right in here. Okay, you're always here. Okay, you need to validate in an operational environment, in a full. You need to validate the whole system in the running environment. This is about like certification, especially for health. You need a lot of certifications. You cannot just say, okay, this is a good device and we insulated that. You need to have a lot of health approvals, especially if you want to sell it in Europe. Okay, these are important. That's our structure. Nothing really crucial about that. How does this work? Can it probably come a follow-up question, and we can discuss it around that table.
Maybe.
I suppose. So thank you very much for quietly and sleepily listening to me. Okay. Any questions now? No?
Let's say you made a product, and you made tons of millions of dollars with that. How do you distribute the profit?
How do we distribute the profit?
You have so many contributors,
Okay.
and you made so much good things. And
How do we actually deal with the number of like these 28, 27? There is the short answer is there is a thing called a project consortium agreement, and you try to write it down there, okay? But there are other like invisible things, like for example, there is still an invisible border between the countries. So countries are actually Eureka is kind of a collection of semi-detached, independent, semi-independent projects. It's not independent. They need to actually go into the same bucket after a while, but they run semi-independently. So when you look at this, where is that picture over here? Yes, we try to create some value here. Okay, semi-independently from the German team. But in the meantime, we try and look at what they're doing so we can maybe improve. I know that Ismail goes to exhibitions and fairs in Germany a lot to try and actually exchange such technological inputs. And when there is something happen, maybe Netash can actually answer it. What if Netash's ION platform is demanded so much in the end with all these additions of health benefits and AI? What happens, for example?
Yeah, we will have a much more competitive product at the end because these are R&D plus innovation projects, but the innovation parts generally starts something like at the end of the project, because in the initial phase of the project you just make some research and development and you develop your existing products, and then you started to make some innovation to get into the markets. Some kind of commercialization activities, and then if you have a joint product, for example, with Vestel, Turkcell, and Netash produced a joint product, then they will have some contractions between them to decide how we can share the profits. But if you have a single product like Netash did in this project, then we just sell it and get profits.
so if there is another contributor from another country, you have to make an agreement to share.
Yes.
And lawyers.
Oh yeah.
Deal with
Tons of
Yes.
practice.
Lawyers
Yeah,
are also involved.
I mean, this is all like obviously intellectual property. If there's intellectual property generated because some partners are working together and after the project started, then it has to be dealt with separately. But any previous intellectual property of Innocence belongs to Innocence. And this is how it's written. Hopefully such interactions will happen.
So we will now have more technical presentation now.
I'm finished. I
Okay.
think Netash can take over.
Okay, so Netash will, okay, thank you very much. So now we'll continue, there will be questions afterwards.
Okay, Okay, my name is Mehmet Dallı. I'm working for Netaş for almost 30 years. I'm working as both solution architect for some of the international research, innovation, and development projects. And also for some of the projects, I'm working as the project coordinator. For projects that are related to big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning type, which I don't have so much expertise, I'm working more like as project coordinators. But for the projects that are related to multimedia technologies, 5G, Internet of Things, that I have some level of expertise, I'm working as the solution architect. And for this project, I'm working for both as a mixture, both the solution architect and as the project coordinator. So Netaş, my company is one of the first research and development companies in Turkey. Our history goes back to 1967. And we are basically coming from telecommunication base. Our main focus was telecommunications for long years. But in the last few years, we are also developing some products on cybersecurity, 5G technologies, cloud technologies, and also defense technologies. So today I will be talking about our role in Health 5G projects, and during that time I will also mention about some basic concepts on 5G and how we can utilize 5G to improve health services. So first I would like to start with the concept of telehealth, telemedicine and the e-health. Telehealth is the utilization of broadband-based technologies to improve health services, and telemedicine is also a similar concept to that one. So you can think that we can utilize some level of video technologies, video communication or telecommunication between doctor and the patients in telehealth and telemedicine. But when we talk about e-health, then not only the telecom infrastructure, but also the information side also added. So imagine that one of the doctors and patients communicate through a video conferencing system, and doctor gives some advices to the patient. That is a telehealth system, a telemedicine system. But if you started to store the information, the health history of that information on some cloud systems, and on that cloud systems, if you utilize artificial intelligence to produce better diagnostic tools or machine learning tools, then it will come to the area of e-health. So in this project, our main question is how next generation technologies can be utilized to improve e-health, especially the upcoming 5G technology. So at this point, I would like to talk a bit more about the pillars of 5G. There are three main pillars for 5G technology. The first one is enhanced multimedia broadband, as Barış Hoca mentioned. Here, it is related to the throughput, or we can say that the internet speed. So for 5G, we are expecting 10 to 20 gigabit per second speeds. In Turkey, there are some recent studies. For example, in last summer, Turkcell tested 2.3 gigabit per second internet speed with one of the cell phones that supports 5G technology. And a few days ago, Turkish Telecom also tested 2.9 gigabit per second with one of the Huawei's cellular phones. So we are expecting to reach something like 10 to 20 gigabit per second in the upcoming years. The second pillar is enhanced machine type communication, which is the communication between machines. So we can also say it as massive IoT. As you know, there is an Internet of Things paradigm. So we put sensors to all of our devices, and those sensors will communicate to each other, and also we communicate with those sensors. So here the main target is to have 1 million sensors per kilometer square. So for 5G technology, this is a bit aggressive target because as far as I understood so far, we cannot implement. This is a bit aggressive target. Maybe 1 million sensor per kilometer square target will be a 6G topic. But for 5G, we will be some level of sensor to cloud integration between 5G technology, 5G new radio technology.
How many people are living in a 1 square kilometer in Istanbul, roughly?
Lots of people.
I mean, it's a relatively big size space, right? Well,
Yeah.
It's 10 dönüm.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Something like that, yeah.
10 dönüm, so it's something like that. Okay.
The third pillar is ultra.
Hocam 1000 dönüm.
10 dönüm mü?
1000 dönüm. 1 milyon metrekare.
Yok, 10 yani şimdi 1 kilometreye 1 kilometre, 10 metreye 100 metre bir dönüm. Yani tam bin etmiyor ama
Dönüm 1000 metrekare değil mi?
Dönüm 1000 metrekare.
Evet.
Ya az.
1 milyon, 1000 dönüm mü olmuş?
Kilometreye
Bağcılar'da 30 bin kişi falan yaşıyor.
30 bin.
4
Yani
bin
2 kilometrekare.
4-5 bin kişi düşüyor.
ortaya. Bizim İstanbul'da.
Okay.
The third one is ultra reliable and low latency communication, and here for health sector there is a good sample use case that remote surgical operations. So let's imagine a patient in Istanbul and the doctor is residing on Germany or United Kingdom, and the doctor will remotely make a surgical operation to the patient. For those types of applications, the latency is quite important. And currently, with the 4G technology, we can talk about something like 100 millisecond latencies for many applications. But for those types of applications like autonomous vehicles, we should get it to something like 10 milliseconds or even to a few milliseconds levels. So this is also a bit aggressive target, but we will be working on those items. So with the 5G technology, the cloud computing technologies will also have some impact. One of them is mobile edge computing. So in the recent years, there's a cloud computing fact. So everything is started to be stored on the cloud side. Although there are some security problems that most of the people's information will be shared on internet, there are some hackers. But this is also valid for the telecommunications world. There's a cloud-based communication systems, but there are some bottlenecks on the cloud because if there are lots of users, for example, as you mentioned in Istanbul, there's a very dense population, and there might be very huge requests to download some kind of videos, to make some teleconferences, video conferences. And because of that, there might have some bottlenecks on the cloud. And in order to avoid those, a new concept called mobile edge computing is also emerged. So here, the basic idea is how we can distribute the load on the cloud to some edge units. So there are two phases. At one phase, everything is going to the cloud. But on the other hand, we are also looking for some ways to get to the other side, the edge computing, wants to distribute the cloud technologies. There is also fog computing between cloud computing and edge computing. So 5G will seriously impact those technologies. There is also another concept, 5G IoT. So here, as I mentioned, there are lots of hundreds of billions of maybe sensors will be connected to the cloud. The important thing is they should have low cost and low energy sensors. So the aim is to utilize one sensor even 5 years or 10 years period, so that we should design the new 5G radio technology such that it really requires very, very minimum level of energy. So there are three concepts I would like to mention about 5G based telecom infrastructures. The first one is software-defined networking. With software-defined networking, we started to program the network itself. And once you start to program the network, then the network gains the ability to adapt itself with various types of variations that occur in the network. This is one of the basic concepts that will help us for 5G based applications. The other one is network function virtualization. In the network function virtualization, in traditional networks, we are utilizing one server for one specific application. For example, if you have a video conferencing application, then you need a specific server for that one. And if you would like to design a health application, then you need a specific server for that one. But for the network function virtualization logic, we will just apply a virtualization layer and utilize the same server for different type of applications. So one server can serve many different or various or very, very different technologies at the same time, and this increases the efficiency of the data centers. The other concept is network slicing. In network slicing, the mobile operators, Turkcell, Vodafone, Turkish Telecom will like it because the same network can be utilized to support many different applications, and those can be controlled dynamically. So there is one example that maybe this example is a good thing to show how they can be implemented on a real use case. So this is one of the use cases that we will be working during HEALTH 5G project. Let's assume that we would like to detect a heart attack for a specific guy, and we have such a bracelet that's a wearable sensors, and let's assume that this sensor continuously reports the heart rate of that guy plus the location, specific GPS location of that guy. So we have an IoT platform here. So these sensors will connect to the platform, and continuously it reports the heart rate. So on this IoT platform, we also utilize a big data application so that we continuously monitor the heart rate, and if we notice any type of anomaly in the heart rate, then we immediately call communication platforms, and at the end we just call 112 emergency services. And we can send that information, the GPS information of that guy, to the 112. So 112 will exactly know that there is a heart attack at some specific location. And we can even extend this scenario by adding geofencing techniques so that we can send this information to the nearest ambulances, the smart ambulances. At this figure, you may ask, I can also implement this type of scenario with 4G or even with 3G. So what 5G introduces new? So 5G introduces that, as I mentioned, SDN controllers, so that I can control all the network, and I can ensure that the network traffic that that guy is generating, the heart rate signals, will not be impacted to the other events happened in the network. So at this, for this application, we are utilizing the SDN logic, software-defined networking logic, plus here on these server switches, we also utilizing NFV logic. So we can make it much more cost efficient, the first one, and much more efficient when it is compared with 4G. So these are some of the academic research that has been done in the last few years. So I put it, sorry, some words are Turkish, but I put it because we don't have so much information about the sensor types, because we are more focused on the network levels and server side of these applications. But I just would like to show you there are different type of sensors utilized in some of the recent academic researchers. And those papers are the ones that they really established a working system, and they evaluated the key performance indicators. So these, none of them are theoretic works. They are really implemented some working systems. And they utilized heart rate monitors, some gas detectors, some gyroscopes,
and based on that some motion activity sensors, and based on that they show that the Internet of Things based technologies can be utilized to detect the emergency situations. They can be utilized to detect some elderly people's problems that they can fall, some kind of fall detection sensors. So when we started the project as a big company, we start as making some kind of academic research to see what type of state-of-the-art works has been done in this field, because this is not only research and development, but also the innovation. So that we need to make sure that we are working on really trend topics. And these are some of the groupings that I extracted from those works. So there are some artificial intelligence-based systems that many of the researchers are working on this field. So of course there are lots of information gathered on the cloud side, and in order to extract some semantic results from those information, very enhanced state-of-the-art artificial intelligence-based or machine learning-based techniques are being utilized, and that may assist for the clinical decisions as well for the doctors. And 5G makes those operations much more faster. And also connecting remote controlled robots that I have mentioned. Let's imagine that there is a remote surgical operations, and there are multiple robots that are involved in the surgical operation. The coordination between those robots, artificial intelligence is also utilized. Another thing is the optimal connectivity through integrated 5G and other wireless network technologies. So it is more like for Netash-like companies' research areas, so that we need to find some ways to integrate the existing communication systems with the emerging 5G radio, especially for health use cases. One of the trend topics is wireless telesurgery, and for this one, they are even talking about a doctor making a surgery even from him or her cellular phone. Adoption of 5G in enabling medical IoT devices. So here we are talking about wireless sensors, and those wireless sensors are directly connected to the base stations with new 5G radio technologies with minimum energy consumption. And there's also wireless body area networks are also quite trend topics here. And the last one is safety and security of the information of those patients, because when you start to develop health applications, then the cloud technologies or edge technologies, you have to use those technologies. And when you start to upload those critical health-related information, you need to make sure that you are also developing security mechanisms and privacy mechanisms so that no one can see those critical information. So these are the use cases that Barış Hoca also mentioned in our project. The first one is the connectivity inside hospitals. So our vision in the project, we are thinking every hospital as a distinct 5G node. So there is no cables in the room of the patients. Everything is sensed or measured by using wireless sensors. And there are some cloud systems in the hospitals, and those cloud systems are connected to some kind of national or even international level systems. And let's imagine that artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms are working on that collected data, so that they will assist them to the doctors to make their diagnosis. The second use case is health at home. So for here, the sub-use cases are interesting. Patient surveillance and fall detection at home. We are utilizing video technologies here, so there are image processing or video processing technologies that detect that some of the elderly people is falling and he needs some help, and they will be also connected to the emergency system with the 5G based communication systems. And the third one is the emergency situation. Here, smart ambulances are quite trending topic. So the target is to get as much as possible information to the ambulance in case of an emergency situation, so that ambulance will make required preparations while it's on the way to the patient. And also augmented reality and virtual reality based applications are quite popular, so that the ambulance personnel can get assistance from the doctors by utilizing AR or VR related glasses, so that they can make some initial medical operations even in the ambulance. So this is one of the sample use case. Actually, this use case is developed in NetAsh while we are doing some brainstorming, while we are on the very initial phase of the project. But I just would like to show you what type of applications the industrial partners are working right now. So let's assume that there is a video conference between doctors and a patient, and an elderly patient, for example. So here we are utilizing 5G technologies to get 4K or 8K quality or ultra high definition video, so that doctors can see the patient as it is there nearby. So once the video conference is established, this is a doctor's screen, and we are assuming that there will be some wearable technologies, and then as soon as the doctor connected to the patient, then the heart rate, body temperature, or other values will be shown to the doctor on another screen, so that we would, because some of the elderly people, it is really hard to get them to the hospital, so we can utilize those technologies to get rid of those issues. And also the same communication infrastructure may be utilized to call emergency teams as soon as possible in milliseconds with the opportunities that 5G introduces. So this also shows that if there is any anomaly in one of the blood oxygen sensors, heart rate sensors, activity sensor, or temperature sensor, if there is any anomaly, then the system will just call 112, or the system will call the parents of those guys to get some help. So that's all from my side. If you have any questions about.
Thank you very much. I have tons of questions, but I reserve some of it for the roundtable, hopefully. So, are there questions? Go ahead.
Will there be any privacy issue with that technology as well?
Yes, if you are talking about cloud-based technologies or edge technologies, there is also always a security and privacy problems. So in the recent year, we started to develop our code by adding the required security mechanisms from the beginning of the project. Because initially, we are developing some kind of codes for telecommunication applications or 5G related applications. And then we started to working on adding the security mechanisms. That was the second step. But we noticed that it is not working, because when you put the system, there are always some bad guys, some hackers, and they start to reach those information. So that you need to integrate the security mechanisms to your code from the first step.
The project that you are developing, is it, are you on the cloud side, or you're also on the access side? Also there are like devices sites. What is?
We are not on the devices side. Maybe I can show it here. Okay, here this is the device site. Between this device and server side, this is the core site. There is also an access site. But for these types of projects, we have also some budget constraints. So, for example, this application is working on is developed for only core site. So we are missing the access site. We are expecting the access site developments from other partners like Turkcell, Ericsson. But the optimum thing is to make it end-to-end. I mean, both the access site, core site, and the sensor site. But for this application, the sensor site is handled by Vestel. So they are developing the sensors. The access side is owned by Ericsson and Turkcell in this project. and the core sites and the applications that are running on the core site, like the IoT platform, big data platform, are owned by Informa, Netash. It depends on the consortium structure actually. I mean, if there is no access element, then we have to also develop the required technologies on the access side as well. But for this specific project, we are much more on the core and cloud side.
So we have the SDN controller and that part.
No, actually, the SDN controller, you can think it as the transport level between access and core. So we are also expecting it from Ericsson or Turkcell. But we have some simulation tools like Mininet. So we are doing our development with our own SDN controller. But when you go to commercial stage, then you have to go with Turkcell or Ericsson.
And about the IO platform, what is the difference of IO platform from the other platforms?
Yeah, a very good question. Because when I talk about this slide, that's one of the frequent questions that I receive. IO platform is an IoT platform, and it gets information from any type of sensors by utilizing any type of technologies like HTTP, MQTT, CoAP, different type of sensors. So you may think that I can also design such a similar platform, but the difference is this is a carrier-grade platform. So it is working on the cloud side, and it is developed in a microservice based and also container-based structure. So this will give us almost infinitely scale up and down in the cloud platform. So for example, one of the sample applications is we are planning to utilize it for all Istanbul municipalities applications. So we are saying Istanbul municipality that any type of sensors that you are using in Istanbul, those might be traffic related, those might be health related, those might be any type of related, we can handle all the traffic that Istanbul generates. So the main competitive thing the ION proposes comes from its microservice-based auto-scale software architecture.
Scalability.
Yes, scalability.
Interesting, okay. Are you allowed to ask questions?
Yeah, always. I wonder all the time. How does network slicing help with the health applications?
Yeah, network slicing, very good question. Again, I forgot about mentioning that.
I noticed that.
Here, as you may see, there are some red lines, blue lines, and yellow lines here. So those actually defines the network slices. Because let's think that there are two types of sensors. One is heart rate monitor, and for the heart rate monitor, you are getting signals all the time, and you don't have any luxury to miss some of the messages, because at that specific time those guys might have a heart attack. So that for that guy, even milliseconds are very, very important. So that we will utilize network slicing technology to ensure that this red line will not have any interruption, will not have any connection loss issue. But let's assume that there is another sensor, and this is also the blue line. This is also reporting the heat temperature of a specific patient. The heat temperature is not so much critical, because maybe it is sent in once per hour or once per 2 hours. So the delay is not important. I mean, not even milliseconds, maybe a few minutes will not be so much important. So the network slices let us to utilize the same network to handle different type of applications or sensors that requires different quality of services.
Questions?
One last question. The network bandwidth is going higher and higher. We need much better for that, obviously. Can you give some examples about the cryptology, for example? Because you're going to need better cryptology and maybe some applications of blockchain to ensure the privacy. And can you give some examples about state-of-art on those? Because I think it's going to be critical, especially on the access end.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about remote operation of the patient critical information, things like that. I mean, how do you handle those education authority in these scenarios?
That's a good question, but the address is wrong, actually. I have expertise on 5G technologies, the communication part, the SDN, NFV, other stuff, and some multimedia communication stuff. I have some kind of expertise on big data or machine learning, but the cryptology, the cybersecurity stuff is a totally different world. In Netash, we have a different cybersecurity team, which has 80 or 90 guys. So for those types of cryptology, blockchain, or cybersecurity stuff, I'm going to those teams and I tell the project, hey, we have such a project, and let's come and work with us, and you handle the security.
Since you're not developing the access devices to the client side, you're not much into that, I guess. You guys are much into the
on the cloud side. I mean, on the IoT platform side.
Okay, nice.
But for the security, you have to think in a holistic view, of course, because those sensors are connecting. So there are some things that you need to make on the sensor side, and there are some things that you need to perform on the cloud side, and there are some things that you need to work on the access side. So that's a totally different worlds for me, actually.
Yeah, synchronization and collaboration platform.
Yeah.
So maybe who's staying a little bit longer to talk a little bit more around the round table? Can I see some hands over here to stay maybe not too long, probably an hour or so? Thinking, I mean, initially, right? Ismail Hoca? So can I see how many people are from here? And Seda will show you our meeting room. Okay, so we have few interested people. I know some people are from biomedical engineering, showing interest. It's nice. Maybe a last question is, who's developing the scenarios? I mean, are there a medical expert teams and additional people who are actually guiding the scenarios? Because the first scenarios are critical, because there will be also demonstrative, but on not only technological side, but eventually they should be the first in line to be applicable. So they should be fit in terms of somebody has to pay for it, right? Eventually. I'm always getting fascinated by technology, but especially on the home side, we always discuss who's gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the government certainly doesn't pay for it. The relatives actually want you dead, so they don't want to pay for it. So who's going to pay for the technologies which are going to be at the home?
Yeah, from our perspective, we develop our own scenarios, and while we are developing our scenarios, we did some brainstorming sessions in the company, and on those brainstorming sessions, we are getting marketing people that are supposed to, sell these systems to government or some hospitals or whatever.
Okay.
So they are given some feedbacks in our technology.
So
and also there are some commercialization people, there are some project managers, there are some R&D engineers. There's a huge group, and we define our use case, we define our scenario that we are working on, we are developing technology on, and then we go to the consortium. Of course, because it is an international consortium. And on the consortium, there are also some defined use cases that are developed by the initial idea owners.
Okay.
For example, in this project, it is much more on the Finland side, but at the end, they didn't get funded. So
this is one of the Finland case scenarios? Or
no, actually, they put some, general use cases. For example, home. Use case, and then we just fill in the blanks for some details.
Okay. I mean, I can add a few things. It's not going to be obviously a push scenario. I mean, it needs to be actually balanced between what the engineers do and what the actual end user, if they're going to accept it or not. And that's why there is this validation step, which is very important, like hospitals. And the hospital engineers.
Yes. Some countries are more keen to be as clinical side to be a validation, I guess. I am not sure whether Turkey is one of them. Right? Within the consortium, there are probably some medical centers or some.
There are 3 hospitals from Germany, one rehabilitation center from Turkey.
Okay. Our group seems to be more of technology guys, right? Not like we don't want to touch what ministry is doing in this.
This is a crucial end, right? There are a lot of projects funded. There is a big, large consortium, 5G.
Right.
There are not, there's Horizon 2020 projects. How do we, I mean, this is just a food for thought. I know nobody knows here. But just for you to think, for us to think, who is coordinating all this for national? It's a mess.
Right.
It's a big mess.
Maybe a final question from me, then we discuss it on our own, we have to let few the students go because they are getting a little bit maybe overwhelmed. But this is the future. I mean, most of the biomedical guys, the big hospital is one scenario, this the distributed networking and digital health is one of the futures, and we are probably not doing a good job of giving any lectures on that, part of our Biomedical Engineering Institute. We have a strong team in Boğaziçi University working on IoTs and some health and home health with the NetLab. Computer engineers, any of you are in touch with that group?
No.
Okay. So maybe
We can discuss this.
It's
kind
in
of
private.
cooperation.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. So how about to get a team or someplace, or you don't have to probably over there, and then follow, raise your hand.